In 1587, Sir Walter Raleigh financed the establishment of a British colony on Roanoke Island, just off the coast of North Carolina. One settler he tasked with this mission was John White, an artist and mapmaker for the expedition. They landed in July, the 115 colonists quickly making themselves at home. While there, White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, gave birth to the first English child born in the Americas. Overall, the journey seemed like a success. But when White sailed back to England for supplies, his return sparked one of the oldest unsolved mysteries in the United States. For at some point in the 3 years he was away, the entire colony completely vanished. The only clue? 2 words: CROATOAN, the name of a local island found carved onto a post, and crow etched into a tree. So what does this all mean? And where did the lost people of Roanoke go? Many theories have emerged over the years, some perfectly logical while others downright insane. Guess which ones we're going to start with. Today we're going to explore the many theories about the mysterious vanishing of Roanoke Colony. But before we get started, subscribe to Weird History below and leave us a comment. Now let's get to it. If you push aside the moral dilemma, cannibalism is probably one of the most convenient forms of murder. Not only do you get a free meal, but leave very little incriminating evidence behind as well. It wouldn't be surprising that these early settlers would leave no trace if they met such a fate at the hands of the native tribes. For many of these cultures, bones were often ground up and used for healing remedies, something that could have easily been done in the 3 years that White was gone. That said, there's no convincing evidence that the tribes around North Carolina practiced cannibalism, but there's always the possibility that Roanoke simply went the way of Jamestown and did the deed themselves. This could be further corroborated by reports from Native American tribes claiming to witness an internal conflict among the colonists, as well as archaeologists theorizing that a possible plague inflicting the settlers. Such an illness could have caused anything from paranoia to complete insanity among those affected, causing a highly volatile situation leading to their demise. And finally, we couldn't have a conversation about cannibalism and disease without bringing up the possibility of an aggressive zombie virus, something that, if happened, would certainly explain the lack of human remains when White returned. It's clear that the etched word CROATOAN somehow relates to the neighboring island near Roanoke. However, the word itself has amazingly coincided with other major disappearances and deaths over the years. In 1888, the infamous stagecoach robber Black Bart supposedly carved the word into his jail wall right before he was released and never seen again. Later, the horror author Ambrose Bierce wrote the same word into his bedpost before vanishing in Mexico in 1913. It was one of the final words in the logbook of the ghost ship Carroll A. Deering, which ran aground sans crew in 1921. Where did it hit? Cape Hatteras, not far from what was once known as CROATOAN Island. Amelia Earhart reportedly scribbled the word in her journal before her disappearance in 1937. It's even connected to the death of Edgar Allan Poe. After disappearing on a trip to Pennsylvania, the famed author was found nearly unconscious in the gutters of Baltimore, Maryland. Of the many words allegedly babbled on his deathbed, one specific one stands out: CROATOAN. To this day, Poe's cause of death remains a mystery, and sure, you can credit that to less than modern medical practices of the times. Or you can believe that the Gothic artist somehow met the same mysterious fate as the lost colony before him. We know which one he'd clearly prefer. If films and TV have taught us anything, it's that the 15 and 1600 settlers were perpetually battling with the Dark Lord in the form of either a smooth-talking goat or a trio of charismatic time-traveling witches. North Carolina was no different, as many natives told tales of a sorceress stalking the nearby woods. Could this dark magic be what sealed the fate of the people of Roanoke? Well, if you want to get realistic about it, it's far more probable that either the settlers themselves or the surrounding natives became accused of such witchcraft, leading to a conflict resulting in their eventual demise. According to historians, the tribes in and around the CROATOAN Islands not only believed in witches, but would often condemn outsiders to death. Is it possible that they interpreted a spreading disease as the work of the devil? It's either that or they all danced themselves to death while enchanted by the lyrics of Screamin' Jay Hawkins. Aside from witchcraft, the indigenous people of Roanoke had plenty of folklore explaining dangers that could and perhaps did befall the colony. For starters, the tribe believed in greater spirits that manifested in the form of elements, one of which took the form of a reptile. Coincidentally, the natives reported strange phenomenon occurring at the same time as the Roanoke vanishing, such as the sudden death of birds and other wildlife. It was one tribal belief that this reptilian devil attached itself to humans, causing them to take on demonic traits and wipe each other out while cursing the entire region. Another similar lore involves a spirit who, if angered, will literally absorb the offenders into the surrounding woods, so perhaps the people of Roanoke never left, but rather became part of the land in the form of trees. Most likely these ideas were laughed off as superstition, but that didn't stop poet Sally Southall Cotton from creating her own tall tale in 1901. Titled The White Doe, The Fate of Virginia Dare, Cotton imagined a world where John White's granddaughter was taken in by a local tribe and renamed Winona Ska. After being lovingly raised, Virginia would meet a sinister fate by the hands of an evil witch doctor. The poem describes a fit of jealousy turning the now tribeswoman into a white doe. And while the story is presented as fiction, many people have claimed to witness a pale deer roaming around the area. One simple explanation for the Roanoke disappearance has to do with the fact that England and Spain were at war during the time of the colony. Among other things, this conflict had to do with the colonization of the Americas. Since there were Spanish troops stationed in Florida at the time, it's entirely possible that they took a trip to the north to eradicate their rivals. But that's not the only political explanation for the event. An anthropologist named Lee Miller believes that the colonists were secretly part of a plot by Sir Francis Walsingham, the Secretary of State under Queen Elizabeth I. In her book Roanoke, Solving the Mystery of the Lost Colony, Lee theorizes that the colonists were intentionally stranded in order to sabotage Sir Walter Raleigh, who funded the entire expedition and was granted a royal patent for all the land he would settle. Despite the actual fate of the settlers, this kind of top-secret double-cross would certainly explain why there were no records of the disappearance, as that information would be kept hidden from the Crown. We know it's not the most glamorous of theories, but there's nothing to dispute the idea that the Roanoke colony simply packed up and left the area. One belief is that the people grew tired of waiting for John White to return with his supplies, and instead attempted to sail back to England on their own. However, historians believe that the colonists didn't have a ship large enough to carry them all, making this theory highly unlikely. And while there is no physical evidence of a shipwreck, one substantial piece of proof did support the theory that the colonists simply moved on. Called the Dare Stones, a series of engraved rocks were gradually uncovered between the years of 1937 to 1941, the first of which was found along the Carolina coast and believed to be written by Eleanor Dare herself. According to this stone, the colonists decided to move farther away from the ocean after White embarked for England, eventually succumbing to illness and violent encounters with native tribes. While a good deal of these stones eventually turned out to be fake, the initial one describing these events has not been debunked, making this one of the more realistic possibilities. Along with simply moving to a new area, it's also likely that the people of Roanoke were conquered by neighboring parties in the process. The best evidence of this theory is the carved word CROATOAN, the last message of the colony, which along with being an island just south of Roanoke, also happens to be the name of a tribe who lived on that island. Considering that the settlers had a good relationship with the CROATOAN people, it's not wild to speculate that they moved to the island and were absorbed into their group. Or another inland tribe such as the Chowanoks or Wet'miaks. Personal accounts also support this theory, as many reported seeing European-made goods in the area not long after the disappearance. One chart of the surrounding area in 1607 describes 4 men clothed that came from Roanoke, living with the Iroquois. Others claim to see stone houses at the native settlements of Peckareconick and Ochinohoan. Even contemporary archaeologists have found such evidence, including a gold signet ring, the partial remains of a sword, and slate and pencil matching that belonging to Roanoke colonists. Then there's the less than friendly possibility that the colonists were conquered rather than lovingly welcomed. One such account coming from Jamestown Secretary William Strachey, who reported seeing tribes with European slaves being forced to beat copper. According to Strachey, when they further investigated this discovery in 1607, the Native American chief Powhatan confessed to Jamestown leader John Smith that his people in fact murdered the Roanoke colony for aligning with a rival tribe. While that sounds pretty conclusive, the story remains highly disputed by historians on account of it coming from the single source of William Strachey, John Smith himself never mentioning it in his own writings. No matter which account you believe, it certainly seems the most likely possibility that the people of Roanoke either traveled with or were taken over by the native people. Well, maybe the second is most likely. What do you think happened to the people of Roanoke Colony? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.